Hey everyone, I want to take you through a short presentation on all things nutrition and how we tie it in with exercise to look better, feel better, and perform better. Now, the basic premise of what I'm going to talk about today is something that we call energy balance, and that's what it all comes down to. It states that our body is somewhat similar to a bank account, i.e., if we're paying in more than we're paying out, our balance will go up. Whereas if we're expending more than we're paying in, then our balance will come down. Now, in this scenario, our bank balance is our weight on the scales. However, we're going to dig a little bit deeper into that equation today to see how we stack the scales. So let's see here how we stack the scales in terms of how much protein, fats, carbohydrates, and alcohol we stack in is going to make us feel versus how we stack the calories outside of the scales. So how much exercise we do, how much daily activity we do, and what part our rest and metabolism plays. So to do this, we're going to break down each individual block. So if we start off with protein over here, that is what I kind of call your master nutrient, the most important macronutrient really. It comes from the Latin meaning of first importance. Now, protein, what I'm going to talk about is where do we get it from, what does it do in the body, and why is it a secret weapon for people like us who are trying to look better, feel better, and perform well? So, first of all, where do we get it from? There are two real sources or categories of protein that I like to talk about. First one is animal products, so that's going to be things like meat, fish, poultry, seafood, eggs, dairy products, and on the other side we have plant-based proteins, which are going to be in things like beans, nuts, seeds, legumes, in some grains as well. Now, for the most part, when I'm talking to people about protein and maybe increasing their protein intake, people are going to get the most bang for their buck choosing animal protein sources. So take, for example, chicken or turkey. It is packed full of protein. And the calorie content from the other nutrients, so there isn't really much fat or protein, it's super low. Whereas if we compare that with something like nuts or grains, we often find that per serving, the protein content is much, much lower, but it might have more fats and carbohydrates as well. So it doesn't pack as much of a protein hit per calorie serving, if that makes sense. So protein, we know where it comes from. Next up, what does it do? So when a lot of people hear the word protein, they think of building muscle or building and repairing muscle. And that's absolutely right, but I want you to take that one step further. It's not just about building and repairing muscle, it's about building and repairing every single cell in the body. So our hair, skin, teeth, nails, bones, ligaments, organs, so like our heart and our lungs, and even down to the tiny little things in our body like enzymes. So even for our body to have enough enzymes for essential chemical reactions to occur, we need enough protein in the body. So, with that logic, if we don't have enough protein in the body, serious health implications and ultimately you die. So it's pretty serious that we get enough protein in. Now, lastly, I want to talk about why protein is such a secret weapon for people like us who are trying to look better, feel better, and perform really well. And a number of different things. First of all, protein keeps people fuller for much longer. So if, let's say, we were to eat 500 calories from a steak versus 500 calories from jelly babies, I know it's an extreme example, but fast releasing carbohydrates, we're going to get that energy hit straight away, which is good in a way because it gives us instant energy, but then 10, 20, 30 minutes later, we're going to have crashed out the other side of it. We're hungry again, therefore we're going to start to look for other snacks, normally something sugary, something high in caffeine, something high in calories, which just keeps us on this roller coaster for the rest of the day. So if we can pack protein into each of our meals, then normally it's going to fill us up for much longer. Now, because protein fills us up for so much longer, it actually means that a lot more of the calories are burnt off in the digestive process because it takes so long for the body to break it down and digest it. So protein normally burns off somewhere around about 20% of its calories just being digested, whereas fats and carbohydrates hardly burn anything off. So if you were to eat 1,000 calories from protein, you'd probably only end up getting about 800 of them in the body, whereas most of that 1,000 would end up inside from fats and carbohydrates. Okay, and then finally, protein helps you recover from your workouts. If you haven't got enough building blocks, then we're not going to be able to repair those brick walls that we're going in and smashing down every time we train. So, moral of the story, protein should probably be the first thing on your plate in each of your main meals. It's going to keep you fuller for longer, going to help you recover from workouts, and it's tasty. Next up, we're going to talk about fats. So you get healthy fats from things like nuts, seeds, avocados, oils. It's present in red meat, oily fish, egg yolks, and in whole dairy products. Same questions. Where does it come from, and what does it do? So we know where it comes from. Next up, what does it do? A lot of people don't actually know what fats do in the body. Now, this is really important because if you think about protein as the building blocks, I always like to think of fats as the cement that binds them together and actually allows them to form things and become structures, because every single cell in the body, so trillions of cells in the body, every single one of those cells has something that we call a cell membrane, which is basically the wall of the cell, and that's predominantly made of fats. So if we don't have enough fats in the right proportion, our cells just don't work properly. They can't communicate with each other and they can't transfer things in and out, which isn't bad news. So if we don't get enough protein in the body, fats in the body, again, serious health implications and ultimately death. On top of that, why is it so important for people who are trying to look better, feel better, and perform better, like you and me? Because every single hormone in the body is derived from fats. Now, if you're trying to lose weight, gain muscle, get fitter, get stronger, or just feel better, and your hormones are out of whack and they're not working with you, you're fighting a losing battle. So we need to focus on getting some good fats in the body in the right proportions, so we've got enough raw material to look after ourselves and to look after our hormones. Plus, they can be a great source of energy as well. So moral of the story, you probably need some fats with each of your meal as well. Next up, carbohydrates. So where do we get them from? First of all the good stuff, all the tasty stuff like bread, cereal, rice, pasta, potatoes. So that's what I would call your starchy carbohydrates. You can also have more fibrous carbohydrates, which are going to be, your vegetables. So things like cabbage, spinach, broccoli, kale, asparagus, things like that. And you've also got more refined carbohydrates, which are, your sugary things like jam, honey, and sweets. Now it's more of a continuum. So for example, fruit, it's sweeter, but it's also got some fiber in as well. So that would be halfway between the refined and the fibrous carbohydrates. Something like a turnip or a sweet potato, something like that would be in between the starchy and the fibrous, and then in between maybe something like a brioche. I'm making that up. So that would be something in between the starchy side of things and then the sweeter side of things. And ultimately, it doesn't really matter where we get our carbohydrates from. The only thing that you need to be wary of is that more fibrous carbs are packed full of nutrients. They're packed full of fiber, as the name suggests, and they tend to be lower in calories. Whereas starchier carbohydrates tend to be higher in calories and lower in nutrients. They might still have a lot of fiber. Whereas refined carbohydrates, they contain quite a lot of calories, but not that much nutrition, so not that much vitamins and minerals, and there isn't really any fiber in there at all. So if you need fast-acting energy, so let's say if you were a marathon runner or a triathlete and you needed that quick hit of energy, or if you were half-time in a rugby game, awesome. Get some refined carbohydrates in there because you need that instant hit of energy. Whereas if you spend most of your time, sitting at a desk, pounding away at a computer, then you probably don't need that quick hit of energy. You want to be focusing more of your efforts on that fibrous side of the continuum. So carbohydrates, what do they do? I've already alluded to it. They give you energy. So another thing for us to talk about, if person A is, your typical 9 to 5er, he or she drives 45 minutes to work to then sit at a desk for 8-9 hours a day, to then drive 45 minutes home to sit on the sofa and watch TV. They probably don't need that much carbohydrate in their diet because they don't need fast-acting energy. They can get plenty of energy from protein and fats, and they don't really need any more calories from carbohydrates. Whereas if we compare that with person B, who, let's say he or she has a really hard manual labor type job. Let's say they bike to work, They spend 8, 9 hours a day lifting, pushing, pulling, dragging things, throwing things, to then ride their bike home, to then go and take the dog for a walk and maybe go to the gym. That person is first of all going to need loads more food, and secondly, a lot more carbohydrate. That way their performance is going to be fueled a lot better, because carbohydrate is ultimately faster acting energy. Now, let's look at the other side of the equation. We've got exercise, which is anything that I would define that as something that gives you a training response, something that your body has to go, whoa, we need to adapt and get stronger, fitter, faster, whatever that may be, so that if you try and put the body through that scenario, that situation again, we're going to be fitter, we're going to be faster, we're going to be stronger, we're going to be ready for it. Whereas we compare that with daily activity down here. Daily activity is pretty much everything else. So that's walking up and down the stairs, that's taking the dog for a walk, that is standing up in line for the queue, that is fidgeting at your desk, doing whatever. So it's everything that is still movement and that still requires calories, but doesn't really tax the body so much that the body has to go, oh my God, I need to recover so I can be better and ready and waiting for the next time that happens. Now, a word on that. Exercise is obviously really important. First and foremost, I'm a personal trainer. I wouldn't be here if exercise wasn't important. So people need to be training. They need to be training hard and they need to be training often. But let's say that someone was training for an hour, 6 days a week, which not many people need to do. Not many people do. There's 168 hours in the week. Even if you were to train 6 hours a week, so that's an hour 6 days a week, there would still be 161 hours left. So yes, exercise is important, but think about the rest of the time that we've got in terms of daily activity and the food that we eat, and think of the role that resting metabolism plays. Exercise is important, but unless you are active throughout the day and unless you have a grasp of the food side of things, you're not going to succeed. So I see this all the time in the gym. People are pounding away on the treadmill. They're busting their balls. They're working really, really hard and they're there all the time. But they talk to me and they tell me that they're not changing shape. They're not feeling fitter, faster, stronger. And ultimately, they're not feeling any better in themselves. They haven't got this, feeling of energy, this extra oomph, this extra get up and go or confidence. Therefore, we need to be focusing on everything else outside that hour a day in the gym, because that's where the battle is really going to be won or lost. So the final thing to talk about is resting metabolism. Now, this is everything else. So this is breathing, so the lungs pumping, this is the heart pumping, this is your digestive system, this is just essential growth and repair of cells. You'd be surprised at how many calories that actually burns. So the majority of the calories that your body burns is just the essential processes. Now, we can't really change that. The only way to boost metabolism is to potentially train hard, recover properly, build more muscle, because muscle is quite an expensive tissue. It uses a lot of calories just for the body to maintain. So I wouldn't focus so much on increasing resting metabolism. Just train hard in the gym, recover, and fingers crossed, as you grow and build muscle, resting metabolism will boost anyway. So there's something for you to think about. Look at calories in versus calories out, but look a little bit deeper. Are you eating enough protein? Are you eating enough fats? Are you eating too many carbohydrates possibly? Is your carbohydrate intake matched for how active you actually are? And then finally, exercise. Are you training regularly? Are you training hard enough? But probably the most important question on this calories outside of things is, are you active enough throughout the day? So an easy thing for you to do is get a Fitbit, an Apple Watch, a Jawbone, something like that, which is going to track your steps. A good place to aim for is somewhere about 8,000 to 12,000 steps a day, potentially more if you're looking for a faster kind of weight loss side of things, or potentially less if you're looking to try and put weight on. So there's something for you to think about. Any more questions, give me a shout.